August Town Hall. I almost said July because time doesn't exist and it's a flat circle or whatever.
Yay, okay. So welcome, everybody in Zoom. People are still joining. We are excited. It is our August Town Hall. If you can hear us as well on YouTube and on LinkedIn and on Twitter, we should be live now with a delay. Say hi, we are here. Hello. Hey, everybody. All right, cool. Okay, so we have a lot that we are going to be talking about today. Let me go ahead and share my screen and let's get into it to make sure that we get everything covered. All right. Okay, are you guys able to see my screen? Yay. Okay, guys, so welcome to our August Town Hall. I'm super excited to have you guys here today. We have a lot of very special things. I know that there are a lot of people that filed in because we're going to be talking about Gen AI. Yes, today's a very special August Town Hall, so make sure that you guys stick around. We also have a super special guest. We have Luca Dorin Anton with us, and he is from the Man Group. So let us rock and roll. Maybe 1 second. Okay, so what are we talking about today? First, I'm going to cover some updates, announcements, and shout outs. Then I'm going to cover our project updates. That's going to be Maggie and Shashanka. Then we're going to have Tomas do a special presentation on our long-awaited new connectors for Daxter and Prefect. We then have the awesome adoption journey with the Man Group. And then we have Gen AI coming to DataHub Cloud and DataHub for AI. All right, so give me 1 second. I'm going to pause here. I have a little bit of feedback. Hold on 1 second.
It's not coming through on our side, Miko.
Yeah. I'm just having some feedback here. I don't know if that's Lydia or not. Oh, okay, we're good to go. All right, I am back here. Thank you. Okay, so let's continue here. Just want to make sure you guys are seeing my slides. Okay, so let's get in and let's get started here. All right, so let's do some community updates. Hello. So as we come to the end of summer, exciting times here. We are approaching over 11,637 Slack members. Active weekly is sitting around
sorry,
700.
Miko, we're still seeing the agenda.
Oh, nope, I have. Okay, let me just, sorry about that. Let me reshare that again. Are we good?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, there's a little bit of delay there. So then we had over 7,000 messages posted. So as you could see, super active. And of course, we're always over 300 plus reactions. So please do use the emojis. I'm hoping to launch some new ones in the fall. All right. Okay, so let's talk about our GitHub project. Exciting times here. So we have about 213 people active. In terms of comments, we had over almost 300 comments. But what's exciting is we had 178
Miko, sorry, Miko, we're still seeing the last slide. Do you want me to share instead?
Yeah, I don't know why. I have no idea why it's not changing. Maggie, do you want to take over the view? I don't know why it's not changing. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, I'll let Maggie share. Sorry about that. I'm changing, but you guys are not going with me.
It's why we have backups.
Yeah. 1 second. Thank you. I'm in my happy changing era. Okay, thank you. All right, so I just wanted to highlight that we had 178 PRs that were created and 162 were also merged. So thanks everybody for submitting those PRs. I think if you guys are in Slack, you saw Maggie did a huge announcement of some releases as well. So make sure that you guys check that out. It's also in GitHub. All right, in terms of our support volume, as we mentioned, we have a ton of messages here. I think the important thing when you look at this diagram and the way that we look at it is we have a lot of ingestion and troubleshooting questions. And the reason that we are sharing this with everyone is not just so that you could see the volume, right? We're averaging somewhere between 700 to 800 plus support questions a month. Now, we do have Run LLM, which I'll mention, but we do appreciate everyone's support. If you see a question and you can answer it, please help out in the community. But thanks everybody for all of the support questions that you guys are bringing. All right, Run LLM. So if you are in the audience and you use Run LLM, raise your hand. I know that I use it. Okay, Run LLM is pretty cool. I think we're way beyond our pilot now. So we launched this in May initially in the ingestion channel, but now it helps to give you guys quick answers in our all things deployment and in our troubleshoot channel. We've had a lot of really good feedback. We've had over 2,000 messages that have been answered since August. So we encourage you, if you're coming in to check out, you just type at Run LLM and it will answer you. It is getting smarter by the day. And thanks everybody who has helped us to get this launched to get you better support. All right, shout out time. Okay, so community-wise, I just want to give some shout outs with the volume of questions that we are seeing in our support volume. We want to say a big thank you to Mike. Mike, I think you're actually in here. I think I saw you in the chat. And also Tim Bosner. I don't want to mess up his name here. He's not here, but I thought I saw Mike earlier, as well as everybody else, David, Deepak, Jasminko, James, Luen, Tim. We also have some DataHub champions that are in here. I just want to say thanks everybody for the support. Our hope is that we have enough names to fill 2 slides. We could use all the support we could get, but we thank everybody who stepped in to help us in the community. Okay, now, if you need community help and Run LLM, maybe you got some help, but you need additional help, we do have our weekly office hours. Very easy to join. We actually have 2 sessions, right? So there's weekly learnings. We have our DataHub office hours that happen at Tuesday at 9 a.m. And then Maggie, next. And then we have our DataHub Decoded sessions, which happen every Wednesday at 9 a.m. The difference, hey Mike, yeah, Mike's in the comments saying he's happy to help. Let's give him some love in the chat here in Zoom, guys. Seriously. And so this session in particular, I know everybody knows what office hours are, but if you haven't checked out DataHub Decoded, Maggie lays down some serious strategies and how to get you through DataHub. So it's well attended. It has 5 stars, believe it or not. It's a really great session. So make sure you guys attend it. No, we do not record it. So you do need to be there to attend. And a reminder, if most people here are in Slack, so this is a reminder, if you're in Slack, please join in. There's some new things in Slack that we have, like our job board is up and running. We have our local Europe channel where we have some activities. So make sure you guys log back in. If you are not in Slack, please join us at Slack, the datahubproject.io. Not a big announcement. Let's go. I'm so excited. Okay, guys, big announcement. Drum roll. Can we get a drum roll in the chat? Woo! Trying to see. I need to get some music. Drum roll, everybody. Drum roll. Okay, whether you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, guys, guess what? Our very own Metadata and AI Summit is live, guys. We are having our own event. It is virtual on October 29th. If someone, I will go in after and put the link in the chat. I'll put it on YouTube. You guys can register today. We already have hundreds of people signed up and an exciting lineup of speakers hosted by your very own Maggie Hayes and Trishanka Das, guys. So we have all types of speakers that are going to be talking about metadata and AI. So make sure that you guys mark your calendars and register today. And like I said, I will put the link in chat and we look forward to seeing you there. But that is not all. All right, drum roll time. Who's going to be at DBT Coalesce? If you're online in YouTube, and if you are on Twitter, if you're on LinkedIn, you can just say I. How many people here in the chat, raise your hand or put into chat, are going to be attending DBT? If you're going to be there, we are going to be there. We have a booth. I did not get into putting the details, but I heard we're also giving away some cool Meta glasses. So you guys make sure to join our booth at DBT. The one update that I do have for those people who came last year is that you're looking for our DataHub Cloud booth, which you guys are going to hear more about, okay? So we look forward to seeing you guys. And that's not all. If you are in Europe, even exciting times, we are going to be at Big Data London. Is there anybody here attending Big Data London? Let us know. Our booth number is X416. I know it's a huge event because I've attended it before. We also have an exciting session with Trishanka. He is flying to London. It's on Wednesday, the 18th at 4:40 p.m. And he will be discussing analytics and decision intelligence. I'm sorry, he'll be hosting a roundtable, guys. Sorry about that, at the Analytics and Decision Intelligence Theater. This is important because that place is huge. So just mark the calendar, mark the date, and make sure that you join him for his roundtable and also our booth. Yay! Okay, so I'm going to hand it back over now to Maggie Hayes, and she is going to give you guys a few project updates, and I believe Shashanka may have some as well. All right, go ahead, Maggie.
All right, welcome to Town Hall Project Updates, featuring me, Shashanka, and my dog, Nellie. She's very cute, and we love her. We announced, if you saw in DataHub Slack, we announced earlier this week that DataHub B014 0.2, we had a little couple of hot fixes there, is live and ready for you. Helm charts are available. It's ready to go. So we're going to take a quick look at what is included in that. Overall, this is the largest release we've ever had in terms of contributors and commits. So we had 79 unique contributors to this release with over 400 pull requests. Let me tell you, it was a lot to scan through. There's a lot of good stuff in there. And at the end of it, we have one heavy metal anthem to celebrate it all. So taking a look at our contributors, we had 27 first-time contributors. Again, this is the largest within the history of DataHub's project. This is the most first-time contributors we've ever had in a release, the most contributors in general that we've ever had in a release. And I'm just constantly blown away that we continue to see new faces, new contributors on all parts of the project. We also had 33 repeat contributors. Massive shout out to you folks. And then of course we had our code maintainers moving all those PRs through and also contributing back to the project as well. So again, huge shout out to everybody involved. We really, really appreciate the code contributions. We quite literally could not have an open source project move forward this quickly without you. So big thanks. In terms of, I'm going to breeze through this because we have a lot of really great other things to get through. But I'll be sure to link the release notes in the chat so you can go take a look at it whenever you're ready. So in terms of user experience, just a heads up, we used to have a tab on the dataset asset page called validation. That's been renamed to quality. So just a little touch there. But when you go into that quality tab, that's where you can go in and create a data contract via the UI, basically collecting all of your assertions around a data set and creating a contract on what should be expected on a regular basis to know whether or not your data is up to snuff. We have some updates to our customized search ranking, more to come there in an upcoming release, and actually setting those configurable weights to kind of bubble up the most relevant resources to the top. But we definitely made some great progress there. The other thing is that we are moving towards our documentation propagation feature. So if you were in our town hall last month, you saw that we are rolling out new workflows to kind of configure column-based propagation. So we do have a settings page that's been deployed. So like I said, we're just kind of incrementally moving towards shipping that back to the community. In terms of metadata congestion, we have a bunch of new sources, again, contributed by the community. So we have Azure Blob Storage, CockroachDB, Grafana, IBM DB2, which I haven't, I'm glad to see that one still around. And then we have Sigma as well. In terms of Snowflake and BigQuery, the main things I want to call out here is that we're continually making huge improvements to performance, ingestion performance on those two ingestion sources in general. So if you've had long-running ingestion jobs in the past, definitely make sure that you're upgrading your Python packages there and that you're using the latest and greatest. And then there's even more ingestion. We had some improvements to our Looker ingestion, particularly with column level lineage generation when the view definition is in SQL. And then just improvements across the board in all of our other ingestion sources, particularly if you're using DBT, Airflow, Fivetran, SageMaker, Athena, you'll want to take a look at kind of incremental improvements there. Last but not least, we'll take a look at our developer experience. We're always making big changes to our APIs or in our SDKs, just making sure that those are really robust and accessible for you folks. particularly if you're starting to set documentation standards using DataHub forms and structured properties. You'll want to take a look at our SDKs to kind of see how we're making that easy to create and update structured properties, GraphQL endpoints to manage those forms and structured properties as well. On some general like CLI improvements on logging and output there, and then on the performance side of things, just not performance on the platform side of things, we have some throttling put in place. You can also set up async batch mode if you want to start tweaking performance for your REST sync. And then we also had the Visa team contributed some really great performance improvements to Neo4j. So big thanks to folks there. And last but not least, we have a release anthem. If you haven't seen, so what I started doing a few releases ago is basically taking all of our release summary, or the summary of all of our, taking the release summary, running that through a few AI or GenAI workflows, and generating a beautiful set of lyrics based on a theme or a genre chosen by a community member. So big shout out to Carlos. We then take those lyrics, put them into Suno, which is a GenAI music tool, and you get some interesting songs. So check this one out. If you're into 80s heavy metal, you're going to like this one and have some fun with it. I do hide links. Well, anyway, if you're interested in choosing a genre in the future, let me know and we can make that happen. All right, Tomasz, I'm going to hand it over to you. Do you want me to continue to share my slide or share the screen, or do you want to take it?
I can share my screen.
You got it.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm going to talk about and show you two of our new integration. If you are following our existing integration, you might know that we have Airflow integration for a while. So, and I think this is the only data orchestration tool, what we support. I brought you Maggie brought you a nice, cute dog picture. I brought you an AI-generated little girl who represents our community, who she only has, one toy. She's kind of happy, but wouldn't be her happier having more toys and more options to play with. We think the same about our community, and actually our community really asks for other data orchestration tool integrations. So I'm happy to announce our new Prefect and Dexter integration. So as you can see, even this little girl is so happy now, and we hope our community will be happy as well. But I just give you like a brief overview of our new integrations. First, I will start with Prefect. What you will get if you use our integration. Basically, we had the same user experience what you would get with Airflow. In the top of the screen, you can see a screenshot from Prefect, and on the bottom, you can see some example screenshot from our integration after I ran these workflows on DataHub. As you can see, it has the same look and feel and user experience what we had with Airflow, and we automatically basically capture the Prefect entities into DataHub entities. So basically, you don't have to do anything. We also capture tags, and we can also capture data dependencies. It's not captured automatically, but if you annotate your tasks with inputs and outputs, similarly how initially you could do with Airflow as well, with the inlets and outputs, then our integration can capture those dataset inputs and outputs as well. How you can set it up, it's quite easy. You just need to run a pip install, then creating a configuration block basically a Prefect primitive, saving configurations, and then using this block in your Prefect workflow, and that's it. You are done. You will get your metadata. The metadata will be captured from your workflow runs and sent to DataHub. The other integration is Dexter. Here, the look and feel, it's the same as with the other data orchestration tool integrations. In the top here as well, you can see a software-defined asset in Dexter. Below that, you can see the same, a partial of these pipeline in DataHub as well. So basically, you don't have to do anything. We automatically will convert those Dexter entities into DataHub entities, and you will see your lineage and metadata on DataHub with the plugin. Here, we also provide you automatic data test dependency detection. There are multiple ways to do that. One is basically for software-defined assets, or like Dexter asset. Based on the asset keys, we can create data hub burns, and then based on that, we can set as a downstream dependency of the asset those data sets. Or you can use a drop-in replacement of the Snowflake Pandas IO Manager, which automatically will capture the downstream dependencies and the dependency and set for the asset. Or if you set the query metadata on your asset, we can use as well SQL parsing to capture data set inputs and outputs automatically. How you can set it up? It's as well here as well. It's quite easily. You just install a plugin. You add create a sensor definition and add your definitions or DataHub sensor. The DataHub sensor is basically just listen all of the data Dexter events and capture metadata automatically. And that's it. You are done. So these are basically an initial implementation of these integration. So we are really looking forward for your feedback to get some information how we should improve this. So please reach out to me if you start using these plugins and you have any feedback. I would really appreciate that.
Thank you, Tomas. That's exciting. I know that in the community, there's been a lot of wait for like Spark and Dagster and other type of items there. So thank you so much for that. Okay, so Tomas will be in the comments. If you guys have comments, feel free to leave them. I will now bring up Luca for the Man Group. Give me 1 second here, Luca. So let's give Tomas a round of applause there. Hey, Luca, how are you?
Hello, hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Super excited. So Luca is from the Man Group, and he is going to share his exciting evaluation and adoption journey of DataHub. This is pretty special because I don't know the last time we had an evaluation journey here. So you guys are definitely in for a treat. Okay, Luca, let's rock and roll.
Can you see my slides?
We can.
Amazing. Okay, so hello, everyone. My name is Luca. I'm an engineer with Man Group, and I'm speaking to you today from beautiful central London. So today we're going to go through this presentation about how Man Group is adopting DataHub for data discovery in the modern financial services space. So quickly, the agenda for the day, we're going to go over what I hope you will get out of this presentation. After that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about an overview of Man Group, who we are and what we do. Then we're going to look at our data ecosystem. Following that, we're going to go through our search for a data cataloging solution. And then, spoiler alert, after landing on DataHub, our DataHub journey. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with some key takeaways. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. So, what do I hope that you'll get out of this presentation? Why should you listen to me for the next 10 minutes? I hope that if you do so, I'm going to equip you with the knowledge that you're going to need in order to answer the next couple of questions for yourself. Why do you need the data catalog in the first place? Assuming that you need a data catalog, should you build one? Should you buy one? Or maybe you should consider a third option, so using an open source solution like DataHub. What are the trade-offs between those different options? And then, assuming you end up going with DataHub, what sort of shortcuts can you take to essentially accelerate your journey, or rather, which pitfalls might you avoid to make your life easier? A little bit about Man Group. So Man Group is a global active investment management firm. What do we mean by that is we're focused on essentially creating alpha for our clients to our different business units. Our main business units are the systematic, discretionary, and solution units. So when we say systematic, what we mean is that there's essentially an algorithm making a trade decision. When we say discretionary, we mean that there's a person making a trade decision for our assets. And by solution offerings, essentially what we mean is more advanced investment products that span the two. That's what we're looking at. And if you think about it, all of these different business units, they're underpinned by data, lots and lots of data. So looking at our data ecosystem a little bit, we've talked about a few of the different business units, but there's also other business functions like data engineering, risk, or trade execution, which underpin all of those different business units. And in each one of them, we have different stakeholders that I would broadly describe as data-hungry, diverse people that look at data in different ways. They use essentially different tools. They have different expectations of the data, right? And they understand it in different ways. So for example, a researcher, person who might be looking at building quantitative models based on the data. On the other side, you have someone like an engineer like me, or maybe a data steward. So someone who's very intimate with the data and is also responsible for knowing a lot about the data. In terms of data categories, so I'm going to focus on two main categories. Obviously, we have internal data, but in a way where we differ a little bit from other companies which might be looking at implementing DataHub, we actually deal a lot with vendor data. So what we mean by vendor data is we go to data vendors, we peruse their data offerings, we pick out data sets that we like, and we license them, we pay for them, we bring them internally, and then we build models on top of those data sets. Now, obviously, all of these different data sets and all of this data flying around is built on top of an infrastructure, a stack. We have a lot of Python engineers in the building, but we also have a couple of C# and Java teams. We actually built our own ETL, so extract, transform, and load framework on top of Python. For orchestration, we mainly use Airflow. Most of our services are deployed via Kubernetes. And this is the place where our stack differs a bit from most companies. In terms of database offerings, we actually use a database that we build internally called ArcticDB. Now, probably you haven't heard about ArcticDB before, so quickly let me tell you a little bit about it. As I just said, we built it internally. It's C++ based. It's essentially an S3-backed serverless database in which data frames are the main object. So what do I mean by that? If you've ever worked with data in any meaningful sense in Python, you probably work with a data frame, whether it was like a pandas data frame or Polar's data frame, doesn't really matter. But if you did that, you know that data frames aren't really the same things as, for example, a SQL table. In ArcticDB, if you go to ArcticDB to ask for some data, you're probably going to get it in a data frame format directly. It's also open source. If you'd like to learn more about it, there's a couple of links that you can follow and learn more for yourself. Okay, so we have all of this data in the company. You have different shapes of data, different requirements. And it's also important to know that it's always changing, right? We're getting new data sets licensed and so on and so forth. So we need a way to keep track of all of this data. We need essentially to be able to search for it effectively, to permission it, to figure out what its licensing status is, all of those things. In order to achieve those or satisfy those requirements, we built our own catalog, which is called the Codex Data Catalog. I'm actually part of the Codex Data Platform team, as it so happens. It's very well suited to our man group specific needs, for example, modeling data vendors that I mentioned before, or modeling the licensing status for a particular data set. And it really has good search capabilities as well. So it's useful when you want to go and search for particular data sets. Let me just show you. This is roughly how it looks. But given that, it has a couple of limitations. So what do I mean by that? For example, we'd really like to be able to use our data catalog to search for upstream data sets or upstream data pipelines. So if there's an issue with a particular downstream data set, we want to really quickly figure out whether that's coming from upstream. Maybe there's a file missing from a vendor or something like that. And that's quite difficult to do as is. Besides that, we'd like to essentially broaden our customer base for our internal catalog. So we want to show it to more teams and to get as many teams as possible on board with it. So given these limitations, we thought, maybe it would be good to go out in the world and see whether there's any good solutions on the market, any existing solution. So that's what we did. On this slide, we're comparing DataHub sort of like an hypothetical competitor, because after looking at many of them, actually, they were quite similar in their offering. And two criteria that I want to focus on, the two most important criteria for us were whether it was on-prem deployable. So this is due to the nature of our financial services business and due to the way our infrastructure is set up. This was non-negotiable, really. And obviously, because we're so focused on ArcticDB, we had to be able to build ArcticDB support into it. Now, given RTDB is built in-house, we didn't expect any catalog to have it from the get-go, but we had to be able to build it. And to be frank, none of the other catalogs that we looked at really had any of those two features. So DataHub, big plus in this regard. But we were looking for some other features as well. So for example, we want to scrape metadata from RTDB, but we also want to be able to gather metadata, so push metadata into DataHub from different sources, not only scraping. So that was very important for us as well. And as mentioned, having some sort of data vendor model is great. It is quite niche, so it wasn't really modeled, but we're hoping to build it ourselves. This slide sort of illustrates why we went out and built a POC of DataHub internally. So how did that go? Honestly, it's going quite well. We're currently at, we're currently at the stage where we're pushing DataHub to the different environments that we have internally. We've built essentially a custom Python client that allows us to take our internal metadata model and change it into a model that's compatible with DataHub and then emit it. And we're sort of iterating on the shape of that model. We're presenting DataHub to different users. We're asking them for feedback, and we're trying to action that feedback. So some interesting findings from me at this stage. If you do end up doing like a demo or toy deployment of DataHub, I'd recommend you do it with a small unsecured Kafka cluster. You can try to secure it, but it might be a bit of a hassle. Also, if your organization has Kerberos authentication internally, you can try to use that for the different infrastructure components, so like Kafka or the database, but that can also be a bit of a pain. And actually, at this stage, it might be worth noting the fact that if you use something like DataHub Cloud, so a software as a service solution, you wouldn't have to deal with any of these deployment issues. Next up, if you do use the data products, they're actually quite neat, but it would be better if you stick to a relatively low number of assets. If you have too many assets in a data product, then it ends up creating really large messages on Kafka. And we've managed to merge already a PR to DataHub, like one of the new contributors that was on a couple of slides ago is from Man Group, so that's great. And it was relatively straightforward. We found the process relatively low friction, so good job there. Moving on, okay, now that we're at the stage where we're sort of getting DataHub into production, where do we see DataHub providing business value practically? I'm going to give you a couple of examples. So first of all, we see it being used heavily, or foresee it being used heavily by our data stewardship team. It's essentially a tool that they're planning to use to, as I said, navigate the lineage of a particular data set, see whether an issue is in a particular upstream data pipeline, or even more upstream from us in a file, or maybe there was a file missing delivery, that sort of thing. Besides that, we're hoping that it's going to improve search and discoverability by essentially providing a slightly different mental model about how our data is structured and how the hierarchy of data works. And by things like tagging and terming and having access to hierarchy tools like domains and data products, we're hoping it's going to improve essentially our governance structure, plus things like business owners, so being able to say who owns what and in what way and who should be contacted, that sort of thing. Okay, so let's wrap up. A couple of key takeaways. If you go and build your own metadata model, I'd say it's better to do it iteratively. So start small. Maybe you just need a couple of DataHub entities. Maybe just start off with like domains, data products, and datasets, of course, and build those out. And then you can look at the plethora of entities that are available, get familiar with them, get accustomed to them, and maybe some of them aren't really of much use to you, and that's fine. There's so many of them. You're surely going to find some that are a good fit for your company, for your organization. You can build those out. Again, as mentioned before, probably try to avoid overloading data products. And on the build versus buy question, it might be that open source is actually quite a good compromise. It should be a lower cost than just buying outright, and it should give you a lot of the flexibility of building. However, there's no free lunch. You're still going to need an engineering team that is going to deploy it for you and look after it. And that's going to take time, obviously. A couple of things on our wish list, so things that would make our DataHub experience a bit better. Obviously, as mentioned before, a data vendor model, although realistically, we're probably going to be looking at building it ourselves, and maybe if there's appetite for it, upstreaming it, I don't know. Some improvements for the lineage UI and the SQL ingestion source would be nice. SLA UI, so what do I mean by this? Essentially, for a particular data set, if you'd be able to see that it's supposed to be updated at a particular point in time, and if it misses that update time, we should get an alert or notification, that sort of thing. And we've heard a couple of companies sort of toying with the idea of a logical or virtual data set. So from the point of view of the data consumer, you shouldn't have to worry about whether it's on a particular cluster or environment. You just want the data, right? Whereas an engineer or someone more technical would need those details. So essentially different views in terms of what is the actual source of truth for the data, as it were. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to this presentation. If you want to reach out, there's some contact details on the left. And I'd just like to call out the fact that we're running a London hackathon. It's going to be on the 9th of November in London, obviously. We're going to be working with a couple of charitable partners. We're essentially going to be trying to improve their data stack. And there's going to be open source contributors from major projects, which you've probably heard of attending, like Airflow, Fast API, and Pandas. So yeah, if you're interested, the link is on the slide. Thank you so much for listening.
Yay! Thank you, Luca. That was so awesome. That was an awesome presentation, and you have some questions that I see in the chat. Okay, so Luca will be available in chat. He also put his tag for those of you in Slack. You guys can reach out to him. So thank you. Okay, so now we have another presentation, but while I bring Harsha, John, and Shashank on the stage, because we had a session on evaluating DataHub, I want to launch a quick poll, which I normally do in the beginning, asking everybody here, if you guys could see my poll, what stage are you in DataHub? So while we get ready next, I just want to launch the poll. Let me go ahead and bring on the stage. If you guys could answer the poll, we'd love to know what stage you're in DataHub. All right, 36%. If you are on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Zoom, the options are phase 1, evaluation, like where Luca was. Phase 2 is run a POC. Phase 3 is deploy into prod. Phase 4 is running in production. And then phase 4, which is super relevant, you're about to hear a lot more about, is our awesome DataHub Cloud. Okay, 44% participation. Let's see if we can get to 50%, and then I will share the poll, and then we'll have our next presentation, which is introducing DataHub Cloud AI. All right, let me see. Okay, still going. 2 more seconds here, and I will share the poll results. I have to bring Maggie on here. This is always amazing to me. All right, I'm gonna end the poll. 50%. Okay, cool. Thank you guys so much. Maggie, check this out. So like, I know me and you and Shashank always, let me bring you up on here. We have so many people running in prod. This is cool.
Wow.
Can you guys see the results?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Incredible. So 60, almost 60%.
Congratulations. So it's a lot of work to get there. Congratulations, folks.
Yep.
Yeah, very, very awesome. So thank you guys for that. And like 20% are still evaluating, and then we have 70% deploying. Okay, so thank you guys so much for that. Let me stop sharing. And then without further ado, we're going to move in. John, are you sharing your screen?
Yep, I will go ahead and share.
Okay, cool. So we're going to introduce you guys to DataHub Cloud AI. Rock and roll.
Awesome, guys. Well, I'm really excited to chat with you guys today about what we've been working on in terms of generative AI. About a year ago, a little under a year ago, when ChatGPT was really picking up steam, we at Acroll kind of put together a small team to start thinking about how we could apply Gen AI to, the domains that we're trying to help customers with. And what we looked at is the challenges that our customers were facing across data discovery, data governance, and data observability. This is kind of where we start with everything we build here at Acroll. On the discovery side, one set of problems we were seeing is really around enabling less technical experts. This is actually something Luca was talking about a little bit there with logical data sets, but enabling less technical folks to be able to separate the signal from the noise, to understand what the high quality, compliant, reliable data really is that they should use for a given analysis, for example. But also making that kind of technical context, so queries, schemas, data quality checks, stats, easier to digest for those folks as well on the discovery side. On the governance side, we looked at challenges with maintaining compliance. So as I discussed in last town hall, documenting and classifying sensitive data can take a lot of human effort. And it's also restricted just to folks who understand the domain well, so the experts really. And then finally, we looked at data observability. So how can we maintain quality or establish the safeguards around our data so that we can prevent things like regressions? Again, one of the challenges our customers were struggling with here is just how much human effort it really takes to get that coverage. and the level of expertise that's required. So we were looking at the challenges and looking at which of these challenges were particularly well suited to be supported in some way by GenAI, by what we were seeing with tools like ChatGPT, Claude, et cetera. And the first thing we looked at was data documentation. So we talked a lot about this in the last session, but really what I'm talking about here is quickly establishing purpose for your assets, your columns, your dashboards to achieve compliance quickly. Running a governance initiative to backfill data documentation is something we actually did at LinkedIn when we were there. And it took so much manpower to actually get that documentation in place after many years of sort of decentralized creation of data. The second was data classification. So I kind of alluded to this, quickly identifying the high risk assets across your organization, particularly when you do have a large decentralized organization. This can be extremely difficult to do as a backfill process. And then finally, data discovery. So helping to discover sort of compliant, trustworthy, and reliable data assets for everyone inside the organization. Again, separating the signal from the noise. And what we did is we kind of started experimenting with some early customers and with our own data that we have here at Acro on how we could build AI into the product. Initially, you could say we kind of brute forced it. So we would generate documentation and try to push that up for all of our data sets, tables, columns. Same thing for classification labels. We had these scripts that would sort of push those into DataHub. And what we saw really quickly is that AI is really not the silver bullet that we initially thought it may be. We started to develop a bit more of an understanding of where AI can really help as sort of a stand-in for human intuition. So you know, the AI not only, it needs the context essentially around the domain in order to really be effective. And so what we found is that, you know, ultimately, even if the AI has a lot of context, you still probably need a human in the loop for any type of high stake outcome, like governance, compliance, quality, even discovery. And not only that, but it has to be the right person reviewing. So it has to be someone who understands the domain, understands the specifics, or you'll end up with a bigger mess. And in fact, this is what we ended up doing initially, is creating a much bigger mess for ourselves, where we tried to generate a ton of classifications, generate a ton of documentation without actually having these systems in place for review, and ended up just causing us a lot of headaches early on. And so what we developed over time is sort of a general framework of how we think about integrating AI into the product. So the first, it starts with AI-generated recommendations or suggestions, and then it flows into human approval workflows. So that place for the human to say whether the AI is correct or incorrect before the kind of change is made to the metadata. Continuous monitoring so that compliance is maintained over time. And then finally, hopefully, the outcome is compliant, discoverable, and reliable data. And our kind of goal is to use AI to help power this sort of feedback loop to ultimately, you know, get that compliant, discoverable, reliable data across your entire data ecosystem, across those thousands of tables that you may have accrued over the last few years. And so I'm going to start with just the data documentation feature set that we ended up coming up with. And to talk about that, I'll hand it over to my colleague Herschel, who I think will take over the screen share.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Yeah, so I'll be going through some of the features we've built out for data documentation. So as John mentioned, we started this like over a year ago, and our initial attempts looked like this. You know, we'd generate some metadata about some documentation, but you know, it's kind of overly structured on, or overly focused on, you know, listing out the columns and, you know, highlighting information that kind of we already show in the UI. And it doesn't really have kind of a deeper understanding of what is this table, what is it doing, what do we use it for? And broadly, it just doesn't look like something that any person would come along and actually manually type out. And so we spent a lot of time iterating on it. We landed on something that looks a little bit more like this. And why is this better? Well, one, it captures kind of high-level content insights about the asset. it tells you where did the data come from, how was it generated. If there were complex SQL transformations, it will kind of highlight some information about those. And it will also tell you like why does this matter? What do we use it for? And if there's like important downstream use cases, we will highlight that as part of the description as well. Of course, if you're looking at this to do your own analysis or build your own report, you want to know how to use it. What is the grain of the data? How do we query it? What can I join it with? Things like that. And then, of course, if there are any PII or anything like that, we also want to know about that information. So we can kind of at least highlight it and then take additional actions based on how sensitive it is. And so broadly, it gives you a much better sense for what is the data set, how do we use it? And that way, this looks like something that a real human would come along and actually write. So that's just slides. We can also take a look at how this looks in the actual Acroll product, or in the DataHub Cloud product. And so broadly, when you come to a given table, if we've generated descriptions for it, you'll see those right off the bat. We tag them with a little star icon. It's very important that we kind of distinguish human written content from generated content. And the reason is it kind of depends on, human generated content is like higher caliber and like very known to be trustworthy. The generated stuff is something that like people have reviewed, but is auto-generated and there could be mistakes. And so it's really important to highlight both in the column documentation as well as in the overall table documentation that these things were generated with AI. Now, if we have something that doesn't have documentation, we can just hit the generate button. And this is a live demo, but broadly, purchase events, we have some documentation about it. We can skim through this, we can edit it as we need, and then insert it into the table and then save that. And then of course, for the columns as well, we can go over and just hit the generate button. And for these, it will just go through and generate column documentation for all of the columns. And it will highlight that they're generated with AI. The column descriptions tend to be like extremely high quality. And so we opted not to do like a manual step where you edit every single column, just because it'd be like really, really tedious. But for the table documentation, we really recommend that the workflows, you generate something, edit it, kind of fix it up, add additional insights that you might have, and then hit save. And that's how we kind of bring the human into the loop here without making them do like a ton of work of kind of documenting things that we can already infer from the metadata that we have about the table. And of course, if I come along to a query that I don't understand, let's say I'm looking at this LTV table, and here's how it's generated. And this is a little bit confusing to me. I can also just hit summarize on these. And it will come back and kind of tell me, what is this thing doing? It says that, active customers purchased in the last 90 days. It can tell me like how is it produced and things like that. And then I can go and save this as the documentation for the query as well. I feel that this is super helpful. So yeah, that's how we enable data documentation and data discovery with generative AI. I'll hand it back to you, John.
Awesome, thanks, Herschel. All right, now we're going to go into the next section, which is mainly focused around the second problem, data classification. I'm going to follow a similar format to how Herschel did it. So about a year ago, we kind of introduced a classification module into our ingestion framework. This was our first take on data classification. And how it was configured is basically what you're seeing on the right side here, where you would provide a set of glossary terms, which are just standard labels, and then regex patterns for which columns or which tables these glossary terms should be applied to. This is generally used based on the name of the column or even the value of the column, which is kind of what you're seeing down here. And for a while, this was our solution to data classification. We would ask customers, we would ask folks from the community to simply use this configuration format to classify their data. Now, over the last year, we've seen a lot of major challenges with this. The first is coverage. Obviously, it's really difficult to capture all the edge cases with simple regex or string-based matching, as you may imagine. The second is around customization. So we shipped this with a default set of labels, things like email address, social security number, phone number, but most customers actually had custom business terms. They were more specific to their domain that they wanted to add. And the process of adding those was complex, it was error prone, it was time consuming. You had to be technical and you had to go into that YAML and make those changes. And then finally, it was difficult to actually iterate on your classification rules. So because it was part of ingestion, when we ingest, we would apply the classification rules, we would apply the glossary terms, and you would see the results on the UI immediately. There was no human review, and it was kind of difficult to understand how to iterate on this. So now I'm going to walk you through where we're going with data classification on the GenAI track at Acrel. And to do so, I'm going to go to our, actually, I'll start with our business glossary, because that's kind of the central place that we define our classification labels. Inside of here, I already have a glossary called information types. And this contains all sorts of standardized labels, things like age, first name, last name, email address, home address. You can imagine all the classification labels we may want to use for compliance purposes. So that's kind of the first step here. We provide a business glossary. And ideally, we provide documentation for each type in the business glossary. This is going to become important in a few minutes, and I'll talk about why a little bit later. But you can see here we're providing a user's age, and we're also giving some examples about what the age may be named in terms of the columns. The second step is we're going to go over to the automations panel in Acrel UI, and we're going to create an AI glossary term suggestions automation. What this automation does is it allows us to select either specific glossary terms or specific glossary term groups. For example, I can select the information types that we just saw. And then it allows us to select which asset types we'd like to apply these glossary terms to. So we can apply them to columns, we can apply them to tables. Finally, we choose if we want to propose the terms, and I'll show you what that looks like in this demo, or if we want to apply the terms directly to the data sets or the columns. We can give a maximum number of terms that should be applied for each data set or each column here. And then finally, we click Save and Run. So I've already had this glossary term suggestions automation running for a bit, and it actually does use that information types binding for the glossary. So once this has been running, what you'll start to see is that glossary term suggestions or proposals will be in your inbox. And what you'll see is that DataHub AI has requested to add glossary terms from that information types to columns and tables from your warehouse. It'll actually scan across all of your tables by default. So anything you have in Snowflake, BigQuery, Databricks will be included here. And what we can see is that they're fairly high quality. So you can see we've got things like home address being applied to columns called city, state, address. We've got email addresses being identified correctly as well. And there's kind of two places you'll see this, not only in this inbox where the owners of the data and the admins can come in and review either one at a time or in a bulk fashion, but you'll also see this appear on the actual page for the data set. So if we go into the data set, you'll see that there are these terms that have been recommended. And you can see with this little clock that these are proposed and they're pending approval. I can even come into here and actually approve or reject these term proposals directly from here. So obviously the primary use case is getting really broad coverage for sensitive data types extremely quickly. That's the major goal here. All right, with that, I'm going to hop back into the slides.
Mama, what's the V?
Oral, I think you're unmuted.
John, if you could unmute yourself. I muted everybody, sorry. Could you unmute?
Yep, thanks.
All right, no problem.
So what did we just see? Well, we saw a new automation in Acryl AI that allows you to select glossary terms that are custom to your organization and then apply them with AI. So why is this really interesting and more useful than the regex-based approach? The first is it's easy to customize the labels that are applied. In fact, you can use any glossary that you would have. The interesting thing is because there's GenAI powering all of this, the documentation around each glossary term actually is kind of a part of the quality. So if the quality of recommendation isn't as you would expect, how you can improve the performance of the system is simply going into the documentation of the glossary terms and providing more context. The more context you provide, the better the AI will do at applying your custom terms to your data. This is really, really powerful. The second piece is validation. So by having proposals, we allow that human in the loop workflow so that humans can come in and review in bulk even and apply those labels. And then finally, there's no brittle or hard-coded regex rules here. This is all dynamic, so you can catch a lot of the edge cases that you previously could not. It improves with feedback, as I mentioned earlier. And just a quick couple things
John,
about what we learned. Yep.
Just really quickly, we have like 4 minutes left, and I know that I just want to prep everybody. Shashanka does have a quick, exciting session for you guys, so please stick around. It's on AI. Go ahead, John.
Awesome. Apologies. Yes, I had a feeling this may go a little bit long here. Okay, so pretty similar to what Herschel said. This is kind of what we've learned over time by building this system. I won't go into too much depth here, but feel free to reach out to me if you guys have any questions. All right, and now I'm going to hand it over to Shashanka. Shashanka,
All right,
you're also
perfect.
muted.
Shashanka, yeah, are you? There you are. Okay, great.
All right, everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
That was exciting. Nothing like waiting for AI to think and respond. So we'll do a little bit more of that. We talked about data governance and classification, and we're going to jump right into data discovery and where we're going. So obviously, there's a lot of work that's gone into generating good documentation, generating good classification. All that, in many ways, is to help discovery, right? So we are going to add natural language search capabilities to the search bar so that you can just ask questions like you would normally ask people. And that would extend over to Slack or wherever you are. So the idea is data discovery, summarization, automation is all going to extend over from the application into all the spaces that people are in. And what does that look like? Obviously, conversational experiences. So getting AI assistants, which are co-pilots directly inside the Cloud UI, where you can essentially have a conversation, ask it questions. It's going to be context aware based on where you are. So you can, if you're perhaps on a table, you can ask further questions about the table. If you're on the dashboard, you can ask questions about it. Or if you're on a global page, you can ask global questions. So that's where the future of GenAI in the DataHub Cloud product is going. But we think about it, obviously we're builders and we're people who think about how to build these systems and open them up for the entire world. And so we think about it in terms of layers. If you think about DataHub, it's got a raw metadata model. These are all the things we talked about today, data sets and dashboards and reports and models. But above that, you can think about the GraphQL layer as being like a semantic layer. It essentially understands at a higher level what a data set is and how it relates to other concepts. And what we want to enable really is conversational interfaces to all of this metadata, which could be for a data consumer persona who's asking questions about what data sets they should be using and making operations on top of those assets, or a data governance persona who's perhaps looking for governance policies that they should be setting in their DataHub Cloud product, or maybe even uploading a PDF for data registry guidelines and then just asking for suggestions for how they could be monitoring these policies. And this is where we see the future of metadata and the platform going, and we want it to be open. So the platform is obviously open source and all of the APIs are open, and we want it to be open for AI development as well. What does that look like? We're planning to open source a framework for generative AI. And that looks like essentially all of the capabilities that you saw Herschel and John demo today are really built on top of certain foundational capabilities, the ability to understand what data you need or what metadata you need to answer a question, the ability to understand what prompts are working well, what prompts results are looking like, and then being able to record them, being able to use both manual reviews as well as LLMs to judge those results, and then finally having the ability to either on-demand generate those outcomes or to be able to generate them on bulk. So the goal really is to enable the community to actually tinker around and build very interesting applications on top of this. We will open source kind of the basic framework for it with some starter prompts, and then you can go to town with it. Connect it up to your favorite LLM endpoints and just let us know which ones are working and make this thing better for everyone else. So that's where all of this is going. And of course, I like to tinker around as well. And so I've been playing around with something like this to build kind of a conversational bot, and happy to kind of share it with you all. It's very fresh and very new, so be gentle. But let's see. Can everyone see my terminal? All right.
We can.
So I just created a small command line app called DataHub Ask, and we're gonna ask it some questions. All right. Well, it's got an interesting name. Let's ask it, what can it do for us? Can you do? All right, it can help me find stuff, give me details, lineage, usage. Well, I am a data scientist looking for tables for analysis of pets, because I joined this company called Longtail Companions, and I've been asked to do some analysis on pets data. All right, it's looking for some pet tables. This sounds promising. And it found some in Snowflake. Cool. Yeah, tell me more. The second one looks interesting, pet profiles. Tell me more about the second one. All right, some more details coming through. It is suggesting that I, to learn about the schema or the usage. I'm actually interested in lineage. Can you help me understand its lineage? All right, some upstreams, Airflow jobs, MongoDB, S3, and some downstreams, including some charts and dashboards. So let's make sure to come back to that dashboard later, but I want to take it up on its offer to help me understand its schema. Show me the schema for this table, the descriptions. So it knows what we're talking about, the pet profiles table. Get back with the schema. Show me some, we're going to go at it for an hour, right? So show me some sample queries that can uncover interesting insights. Why think about it if I'm a data scientist? Let me get it to suggest something first before I start doing my work. All right, came back with some good suggestions. Pets older than 10 years, top temperaments, percentage of pets that are spayed or neutered. Yeah, looks pretty reasonable. But remember Gabe's pet report? I'm wondering, maybe someone's already computed some of this stuff. Tell me more about Gabe's pet report. Let's see if it can figure it out. I don't know if Gabe is around. He must be very nervous right now. All right. It is a dashboard in mode, provides insights. Huh. Maybe I can use it. I already have an external URL right here. What happens if I click it? What visualizations does it have? Trick question. Let's see, can it figure it out? It was able to tell me about certain charts that exist and what those visualize. Cool. Let's go click it and see if it actually gets me to the right spot. It does. It does. So from my command line, without even knowing that there is some UI called DataHub that my organization has bought, I can find stuff, I can discover stuff, and then I can go straight up into a pet report. Oh no, Swaroop has a question. This can only mean bad things. Go ahead, Swaroop.
Sorry, that was an accidental hand raise.
Okay. All right. So that's it. I mean, this is cool. I loved tinkering with this thing and building, this application. And once we open the framework out to the community, looking forward to hearing what you guys will build with it. And I know we had a session on DataHub for AI, but we don't have time for it, so we'll do it in a follow-up session.
All right. Thank you so much, Shashanka. Let me get Maggie back up here. Where's Maggie? How is Maggie? Are you going to continue to share your screen? Whose screen is this?
John, you want to share this?
Yeah, just before we end this, I just want to give everybody a heads up on the availability in Ackrel's product for each of the things we showed. Just quick overview, and then we'll hand it back. Governance, the AI-generated documentations will be in 3.5, which is going to be released early next week in a beta form. So if you have feedback on that, please let us know. Automated data classification is in a similar state. Observability, so AI-suggested data quality rules, this is what we call smart assertions, are already available and have been for some time. And really what we're working through now is more on the discovery side, so what you saw with Shashanka's Copilot. All right, that's it. I will hand it back to you.
All right, awesome. Okay, I know we ran over a little bit, but I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us. I think that was super cool. And as you guys know, because I always get the questions asked, we will share the slides. We'll also share the recording online in our Slack group. And just a quick reminder, again, we do have our metadata and AI Summit coming up on October 29th. I did put the link in the chat, but please make sure you guys register. You guys will hear so much more about this and the stuff we've shown with AI and just other topics. So make sure you join us. Okay, any parting words from Shashanka and Maggie?
AI fever's here, people.
Yeah.
No, I'm really excited to see it. I'm really excited to see how we can start getting it out in the community and just seeing what we can build together. That's endless opportunities.
Yep, Rose. Okay, I know we ran over, guys. Thank you so much and take care. All right, bye.
See y'all.